So I did split up our last video into two separate videos. So for this one, 6C, although it has the same title, we're only going to be focusing on box plots right now. So our learning objective from this video will be know how to graph a box plot. This is this is the hardest of the three. However, there is a strict structure that you have to follow. And as long as if you can remember these, what's called the five number summary, as long as you can remember and write that down, all you're doing is filling those out and plotting them on a number line. So it's really not that difficult, but the thing is there's more to graphing a box plot than there is to a histogram or a stem and leaf. So that's why it can be a little bit more challenging. But overall, if you're comfortable with finding a median and the range of numbers, then it's pretty easy. It's just there are 5 numbers that you will have to find, and then you'll plot those 5 numbers, right? So we're just going to talk about this for a quick second, and then I'll go through an example with you, and hopefully this video isn't too long. All right, so what is a box and whisker plot, or also referred to as a box plot? All right, well, a box and whisker plot represents a data set along a number line by using the least value, the greatest value, and the quartiles of the data. And we're going to talk about what that means, the quartiles of the data. But essentially, we're going to be finding the median. And then we're going to find the median of the median, which might not make sense right now, but when we go through a problem, you'll see it's really not that difficult. The main thing that you have to know is there's a 5 number summary that you're going to be finding. We're going to go through that in a second. When you find those, you will plot those points. So we have our least value, our first quartile, our median, our third quartile, and our greatest value. And then the thing that you have to remember is that these quartiles, we actually end up connecting with a box, and then we put a line through the median that we have, and then we draw a line connecting the least and greatest value. And that's why it's called a box and whisker plot, because you can think about these as whiskers on like a cat's face where it's coming off our box here. So these 5 numbers are not difficult to find, but plotting them on a number line, and then remember to connect your medians or your quartiles and draw this box here and then connect the least and greatest value with the whiskers can maybe be difficult to remember. All right, so there's this 5 number summary, which we're going to go through in just a moment, and then we'll go through a problem together, and you'll see it's really not that difficult. All right, so here's how you will plot a box and whisker plot. So please make sure that you are writing this out. And then we'll go through in detail. I think it'll be easier to explain some of these with the example. All right, but these are the 5 numbers that you have to find. The greatest value, the third quartile, which we'll talk about, the median, which is also called our second quartile in these types of problems, but you should already know how to find the median, our first quartile, which we'll talk about, and the least value. So of these 5, there's 3 that you should already be able to identify. You should be able to identify the greatest value. You should be able to identify the median, and you should be able to identify the least value. The 2 in the middle, the third and first quartile, are what's new. But you're going to see these are actually not new. What these are is finding another median. All right? So we're going to split our data up into 2 groups, our top half and our bottom half, and then we find the median of each of those halves. Right? So it's really not difficult, but remembering these 5 numbers can be. So whenever we get started, I always will tell you, write this out on the side as if it's a chart. Then after you find these 5 numbers, you'll draw a number line, you'll plot the 5 numbers on a number line, and then you'll draw that box and whisker based on your data. All right? That is how we will draw the box and whisker plot. So let's go ahead and get started on this now. And then through this example, I'll show you how we can find the third and first quartile. All right, so whenever you're doing a box and whisker or a box plot, you must write this 5 number summary down on the side. So you must write your greatest value, your least value, your third and first quartile, and your median. I would suggest that you write them in this order because you'll see that the order, they will decrease in value as we go. So this will be our greatest number, and then they'll decrease in value as we go. Or if you want to write your least value first and go least, first, median, third, greatest, whichever way you want to go is fine, but keeping this order will keep it flowing numerically, meaning that it'll go in descending or ascending order. All right, but these are what we're going to do. The first thing that you're going to do is when you get your data, you are going to rearrange it from least to greatest. And the reason why we have to do that is we're going to find our median. So in order for us to find our median, we have to have it in order. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite these out in order. You should actually pause your video now and put it in order from least to greatest, and then match it with mine at the end. All right, so here's our list from least to greatest. Now, it is really easy to fill in two numbers already. Our greatest value I know is already 38, so I'm going to go ahead and write 38 there, and then our least value I know is already 14. So right away, by doing this, I can fill in two of my 5-number summary immediately. Right now, I'm going to find my median. So when I go to find my median, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and count how many numbers I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I know I have an even number. So that means I'm going to have to eventually take the average of two numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and start canceling out these values. I'm underlining them instead of crossing them out so it's easier for me to erase later on. But till I get to my middle numbers. All right, so I keep going, and now that means that these two are going to be my middle numbers. So it's actually really easy for me. Do I even have to find the average of these two numbers? Well, 30 plus 30 divided by 2, it's going to be 60 divided by 2, which is also 30. So my median, I know, is going to be 30. All right, now I'm going to erase all the red mark that I just did for our median there and talk about our third and our first quartile. So those three, if I gave you this data set, I would expect that you guys could have done this even without watching this video. This third and first quartile, though, is a little bit different. But what you do is when we found our median, we identify this is where our median was. So we were able to get to these two values, and averaging those two together gave us our median. Well, what we do is we then break these values. Sorry, I just messed it up. We then break these values into two groups. We have our top half of our digits or of our values, and then we have our bottom half of our values. And all we do is the first quartile is the median of our bottom half. So now we take these digits and we're going to find the median of 14, 15, 20, 26, 27, and 30. We do include that 30 as part of our bottom half of our data. So now we count. How many do we have? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So once again, I know I'm going to have to take the average of two numbers in the middle. So these two, I will take the average. So it'll be 20 plus 26 divided by 2 because we're finding the median of our first half of our digits, hence the first quartile. So 20 plus 26 is equal to 46 divided by 2, which is 23. So that means my first quartile is 23. Right now, I'm going to erase this, and to find my third quartile is going to be the median of my second half of my value. So that means the median of here. So then it'll be the median of 30, 30, 33, 35, 36, and 38. Once again, I know that this is going to be even because the other one was even as well, but let's just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even means I'm going to be taking the average. So I'm going to start crossing out my numbers so I get to the two middle numbers. So then 33 plus 35 divided by 2, which is then 68 divided by 2, which is 34. So that means my third quartile is 34. Now, once I get all of these digits, I am then going to have to draw a number line. So here's my number line. I then need to figure out, well, if my greatest value is 38 and my least value is 14, how do I want to count along my number line? Someone might say counting by ones, some might say counting by twos. It's really up to you. However, you must be consistent. Since I see most of my numbers are falling on an even number, I'm just going to go ahead and count by twos. So I will say this is 14. This would be 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, and 40. All right. I'm not going to, let me just pause this and fill in all my numbers. Just when you pick your values, make sure that you're being smart. You could count by like 5s or 10s, but since you would have barely any numbers that fell in a 5 or 10, I wouldn't suggest using those. You could count by ones, but since 14 to 38 is really spread out, you're going to have to draw a really large number line. So twos is usually the ones that I will go to unless it is really spread out. Then I will start counting by 5s or 10s. But 38 to 14 is not really that spread out. All right. Then what we do is we plot all these points. So I'm going to plot a point at 14. I will plot a point at 23, so that would be midway between 22 and 24. Plot a point at 30, plot a point at 34, and plot a point at 38. So now these three, the third, median, and first quartile, we draw a box around those. So I will draw a box that connects my first and third quartile. I will then draw a line going down my box wherever that median is, and then we connect our largest and our least greatest value. So it gives us this box and whisker. All right, something that we'll talk about in the future is this tells us about the variability of our data. So it kind of tells us how spread out it is, because by doing this, what we're doing is we're creating 4 sections, right? We're creating where 25% of our data falls in this region. 25% of our data falls in this region, 25% of our data falls in this region, and 25% of our data falls in this region, because we kept cutting our values. We cut them in halves, and then we cut the halves in halves again. So it's actually cutting our data into fourths. And what this allows for us to see is, well, you see how this is really spread out? It tells us that there's a large gap between this bottom quarter of our data, that there's an even larger gap, or a large gap here as well between this portion of our data. It tells us that 50% of our data is kind of really close between 30 and 38. So it allows us to determine how spread out our information is, right? I know that this one seems like there's a lot going on. We are going to practice this in class. It is really important that you guys watched this video and came to class prepared, so that this way you have more time in class to get help and to graph these. All right, but we will make sure that we have enough time in school for you guys to practice this and then to go ahead and show me what you know. All right, so that is it for this video.